This biography broke my heart. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are doing a spoiler talk on Jennette McCurdy's biography, I'm Glad My Mom Died. So obviously I'm going to go through all of the details of the book, so beware of spoilers if you haven't read it yet. Also, this book does contain a lot of content regarding emotional abuse, eating disorders, mental health. So I will be touching on those topics as well, so beware of that also. And lastly, before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more book videos. So this book was released in August of 2022. This originally was a one-woman show that Jennette had performed in 2 theaters in LA, which previously I didn't know that. Before reading the book, it's in kind of like the ending portion. They mentioned like, oh, this used to be a one woman play. So I thought that was really interesting. But I just saw the book title and I immediately knew that I wanted to read this book. I love the bold title and I was desperate to know Jennette's story. I watched the first few seasons of iCarly back when it first aired. I didn't finish watching the show, like I outgrew Nick before the show had wrapped, but I do remember being really into the first few seasons. And when you're a kid, you aren't aware of what may be happening behind the scenes with child stars and their lives. Like you see them as a character on a TV show. But as you grow up and you become an adult, you realize these are real people, and I think it's really important that she told her story. First of all, I really enjoyed the writing style and the format of this book. Jennette had a great way of getting to the point with what she wanted to say in each chapter, all while giving you these important details without holding anything back. But also, she had this great balance of not going too much into unnecessary detail. So each chapter ranged from 1 to 5 pages. I loved how short and to the point they were. Because the chapters were so short, I found myself reading the book a few chapters at a time and then needing to take a break before continuing on with more chapters. And this is because this book was hard to read. It made me really sad, and I couldn't read it in large doses. I had to read it a little bit at a time and intermix it with reading other books, just because it totally bummed me out. But I think that shows how good the book is. It had that much of an emotional impact on me. I've probably read around like 10 celebrity memoirs before, and this one is by and large the best. So first things first, let's just get the description of her mother out of the way. Her mom was a narcissistic gaslighter who had unchecked mental health issues, who used her past cancer diagnosis to gain sympathy, and she unashamedly lived vicariously through Jennette. I had an immediate dislike for her mom. I think even if the title of the book wasn't called I'm Glad My Mom Died, I still would have disliked her right off the bat. In the book, Jennette goes hard on showing her mother's true colors, and I don't think she was being too hard on the description of her mother, because she was just being honest. Like Jennette was a child, and her mom was such a master manipulator. So here she's talking about acting, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for you, Net, because I'm not like my parents. I want what's best for you, always. You know that, right? Yeah, mom pauses the way she does before she's about to say something she thinks is part of a big moment. She bends to look at me in the eye, still holding my unfinished hair strand. So what do you say? You want to act? You want to be mommy's little actress? There's only one right answer. So they go to her first audition, and they're with the agency Academy kids, and she does not want this. Jennette does not want this. And the person, even at the agency, can sense that she's not into it, but it kept pissing me off that she kept being forced into this by her mother. So the agent is saying it's important that Jennette wants to act in order for her to do well. Oh, she wants this more than anything, Mom says as she signs on the next dotted page. Mom wants this more than anything, not me. This day was stressful and not fun, and if given the choice, I would choose to never do anything like it again. On the other hand, I do want what mom wants. So she's kind of right. At 6 years old, her mother pushed her into acting because she made it very clear that she always dreamed of being an actor, but her parents wouldn't let her. So Jennette had grown up about an hour and a half from Hollywood. She had 3 older brothers, and she lived with them and her parents and her mother's parents. And she describes that her mother was a hoarder, and Jennette described how she always looked forward to going to church every Sunday because it was a 3-hour time frame. That meant that she got to get away from this house that she hated being in. Like, she didn't even have her own room. Her and her brothers and her mom all slept in the living room. And growing up, Jennette's bed was just a Costco mat on the floor. Her mom had filled up every room of the house. And Jennette describes how much anxiety this environment had caused her. And then once she started getting into acting, Jennette's mother got really wrapped up into the world of Hollywood. And immediately she was obsessed with getting Jennette roles. She was obsessed with moving her around to different agents and also doing anything she could do to improve her acting and her skills and even her appearance, even though she was a child. And she was attending acting classes that she absolutely hated. She would say, like, I don't look forward to going to this class the same way I look forward to going to church because I find acting even more uncomfortable than being stuck at home. Also, during these acting classes, her mother was the only parent who forced their way into observing the scene work in the class because parents weren't allowed to observe that part. They made it very clear, but she forced her way in by using her trademark sympathy card. Miss Lasky said in our first class that no parents were allowed for the scene work portion, but mom insisted. I had stage 4 metastatic ductal carcinoma, breast cancer, and my bones are weak from the chemo. Sitting in the car for too long pains me, and I'm not supposed to walk around in the hot sun. Well, there's a coffee shop right up the street, Miss Lasky said with a tense smile. I don't believe in spending $2.50 on a cup of joe, mom said with a tenser tone. And that was that. Mom's the only parent sitting in on the scene breakdown portion since the beginning of class. I'm glad mom gets what she wants, to watch me act, but it does add stress to me. I can feel her judgments and see her reactions out the side of my eye. She mouths my lines as I say them and over-animates her facial expressions when she wants mine to mimic it. It's difficult to perform while navigating mom's sideline coaching at the same time. When class is over, I feel a huge wave of relief wash over me because mom gives me the rest of the day off. I don't have to look at my scene for next week until tomorrow. For tonight, I'm free. So she has her acting classes. Jennette did take also dance classes, which she enjoyed, and she enjoyed them because she said she got a break from her mom. And even though she was happy that she got breaks from her mom, she was still extremely eager to please her mother and to do anything to make her happy because, you know, she was a child and she was conditioned from this very young age by her mother to be this little mini me. And her mom says, not my best friend though. Mom continues, you're my best friend, Net. You're mommy's best friend. I beam. I'm so happy to be her best friend, to be the closest person in the world to her. This is my purpose. I feel whole. And I had so many moments when I was reading this and I just felt so sad for Jennette. And this is only 40 pages in. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's just so much fucked up stuff that her mom did. And obviously I can't go through every passage of her mom being overbearing or doing things that made me uncomfortable, because then I would just be reading you this whole book. So I'll just kind of go through like some of the like little highlights of things that like specifically stood out to me that made me uncomfortable. So at the age of 8, her mom still insists on wiping her after she goes to the restroom, even though Jennette insists that she can do it herself. Her mother also gives her a Red Bull to drink before comedy auditions to give her a comedy energy. And then again, she's still only 8 and her mother is tinting her eyelashes to make them darker. She's adding highlights to her hair. She's making her sit with teeth whitening strips for like 30 minutes past the recommended time to improve her appearance because she wants her to be prettier to get better roles. And then along with getting the roles, she has like this time where she forces her to do these auditions when she had 103 fever. I was just so mad. And then she also gets Jennette known for being like a cue crier to get more auditions. And then she continues to give her like a list of all these sad things that she can think about so that she can use it for her cue crying. Like, oh, think about what if I died? What if your brothers died? What if this happened? What if this happened? So that she can remember these sad scenarios so that she can cry on cue for these freaking Hollywood people. It made me so mad. And like I said before, Jennette never wanted to act. This is never something that she wanted to do. Her mom gaslit her into thinking that like she should be doing this. And as soon as she starts forming opinions where she's like, I don't like this, I don't want to be doing this, she tells her mom she doesn't want to act anymore, and her mom is like, oh no, you love acting. I don't want to act anymore, I say before I even realize I've said it. Mom looks at me in the rearview mirror. A mixture of shock and disappointment fills her eyes. I immediately regret saying anything. Don't be silly, you love acting. It's your favorite thing in the world, Mom says in a way that makes it sound like a threat. I look out the window. The part of me that wants to please her thinks maybe she's right. Maybe this is my favorite thing, and I just don't know it. I just don't realize it. But the part of me that doesn't want to cry on cue, that doesn't want to act, that doesn't care about pleasing Mom, and just wants to please me, that part of me that screams at me to speak up. My face gets hot, compelling me to say something. No, I really don't want to. I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. Mom's face looks like she ate a lemon. It contorts in a way that terrifies me. I know what's coming next. You can't quit, she sobs. This was our chance. This was our chance. And the letters are all drawn out. She bangs on the steering wheel, accidentally hitting the horn. Mascara trickles down her cheeks. She's hysterical. Her hysteria frightens me and demands to be taken care of. Never mind, I say loudly so Mom can hear it through her sobs. Her crying stops immediately, except for one leftover sniffle. But not as soon as that sniffle is over, it's complete silence. I'm not the only one who can cry on cue. Never mind, I repeat. Let's just forget I said anything. Sorry. She's so manipulative. And then along with that manipulation, she tries to get Jennette to manipulate the casting people. And she tells her that during auditions, she should mention to the casting that her mom's has a past cancer diagnosis so that she'll gain sympathy points and that will maybe help her get more roles. Just hearing about her, it's just all insane. So Jennette is 8. And she's being subject to all of this shit from her mother. It's just so much for a child to have to deal with. And also for many years, so Jennette has OCD, and for many years she has to just live with it because her mother refuses to acknowledge that she has it and that she might need to be treated for it. Even Jennette's grandfather is like, saying something to her mom about it, but her mom is like denying it and saying, no, she's perfect, she's fine. And it's pretty obvious throughout the book that everyone walked on eggshells around her mom. Jennette always says how erratic and violent her mother could be. So there's a scene where she's practicing a violent outburst for a part. And her mom's like, where did you learn to act like that? I don't know, I say, even though I do. I know exactly where I learned to act like that. But I know better than to tell Mom I got my character inspiration from her erratic and violent behavior. That would only invoke more erratic and violent behavior. I want her calm, I want her steady, I want her happy. So basically, everyone thought it should be just best to just shut up and let her mom do whatever she pleased. There was even a moment where Jennette talked about her grandfather talking to her when they were alone, and he told Jennette that he felt like she deserved to just be a kid and not to have to worry about supporting the family. I just wish throughout reading the book, there were so many moments where I just wished that some other adults in Jennette's life would have stood up for her and stood up to her mother and helped her. But pretty much, obviously that didn't happen. Her dad was pretty absent. He worked a lot, and he definitely seemed to be afraid of her mom. Plus, we find out, at some certain point that he didn't even know how to spell Jennette's name. So he was worthless when it came to helping her find some sort of sense of self. Then you also get a lot of dialogue from her grandmother, who is just as violent and erratic as her mom. So obviously nothing's happening there. And she didn't really talk about her brothers all that often. So I'm not really sure if they were any help at all, but they really weren't a huge part of the book. Not really sure why. Fast forwarding to a bit of a struggle of Jennette's life due to her mother, of course, because everything was due to her mother. And this is the passing down of the art of calorie restriction, anorexia, obviously. My heart sunk when I read that her mom taught her how to do this, and they basically bonded over doing this together, and this began around the time that she was 11. Well, sweetheart, if you want to know how to stay small, there's a secret thing you can do. It's called calorie restriction. I take to calorie restriction quickly, and I'm quite good at it. I'm desperate to impress Mom. She's a great teacher because she's been calorie restricting for so long, she tells me. Now that I think about it, it does make sense to me that Mom's been restricting. She only has hot tea every morning for breakfast, nothing in it, and a plate of steamed vegetables every night for dinner, nothing on them. I rarely see her eat lunch. If she does, it's salad with no dressing or half of a chocolate chip, chewy granola bar. I'm in good hands. I start shrinking by the week as Mom and I team up to count our calories every night and plan our meals for the next day. We're keeping me on a 1,000 calorie diet, but I have a smart idea that if I only eat half of my food, I'll only be receiving half the calories, which means that I will be shrinking twice as fast. I proudly show my half-eaten portions to Mom after every meal. She beams. The thinner I get, the stricter I get with what I'll ingest, because it seems like my body is trying to hold on to whatever I eat. I notice that most of my foods add a little body weight to me, 0.4 of a pound or so. I know this because I weigh myself 5 times a day. 5's my lucky number, so this amount of daily weigh-in seems appropriate. I also want to make sure that I'm staying on top of every single shift in my body so that I can make proper adjustments and be on track for my weekly weighing session with Mom. So her mom's overbearing nature never ends. It seems to get just worse and worse the farther we get into this book. About 100 pages in, we learn that her mother insists on showering Jennette and giving her breast and front butt exams. And to add to that horror, she also showers Jennette with her almost 16-year-old brother, which is so fucked up. And he obviously also doesn't want to be showered by the mom. And when he says so, the mom has her famous erratic freakouts and bursts out crying and all this stuff until the family just relents and lets her keep doing what she's doing. So at this point, she's 14, and to just give you a visual of how her life's going, Jennette she has to ride in a booster seat in the car because she's so small because of the calorie restriction. I just hated her mom more and more the farther I got into this book. Also at age 14, Jennette says that her mom's dreams came true when she booked iCarly. But for Jennette at this point, she hates acting even more than she did when she was a child, and she hates the fame that also is coming along with it. I'm so unimpressed by people, even irritated by them, at times even disgusted by them. I don't know exactly when this happened, but I have to know it's a relatively recent switch, and I know that fame has something to do with it. I'm tired of people approaching me like they own me, like I owe them something, because I didn't choose this life, Mom did. My anxiety causes me to be a people pleaser. My anxiety causes me to take that picture, sign my autograph, and say it's a good one. But underneath that anxiety is a deep, unearthed combination of feelings that I fear to face. I fear that I am bitter. I'm too young to be bitter, especially as a result of a life people are supposed to envy. And I fear that I resent my mother, the person I have lived for, my idol, my role model, my one true love. Oh, there's a lot to unpack there. So I was really expecting the book, once she had booked this iCarly gig, to almost shift from her covering her mother to her now covering her time at Nickelodeon and the controversies that went along with that. But surprisingly, the show creator really isn't in this book nearly as much as I thought he would be. Her whole time on Nick really isn't dove into much. She really doesn't discuss her time on set that much or the show. Obviously she talks about it, but I thought that maybe the book would completely shift over to that. She does talk about how he was basically a nightmare to work for because of his moods, and basically he's a terrible person, which I think we all know, but she doesn't go into much detail. There is a moment where she talks about like her and the creator at lunch, talking about her being officially cast in like her own show. And we get to see that he's, you know, a big old creepo. Are you okay? The creator asks. Of course. Good, because you should be okay, he says gently. You're about to star in your own TV show, for crying out loud. You know how many kids would kill for that opportunity? Every last one of them. I nod along. He reaches out and places his hand on my knee. I get goosebumps. You're cold, he says, concerned. I don't think that's why I got goosebumps, but I agree. It's always best to agree with the creator. Here, take my jacket. He takes his coat off and drapes it around me. He pats my shoulders and then the pat turns into a massage. Oof, you're so tense. Yeah. So anyway, what was I saying? He asks while he keeps massaging me. My shoulders do have a lot of knots in them, but I don't want the creator to be the one rubbing them out. I want to say something. I want to tell him to stop, but I'm so scared of offending him. Oh, right, he says, remembering his train of thought without my help. Every kid out there would kill for an opportunity like the one you've got. You're so very lucky, Jennette. I know, I say while he keeps rubbing me. And I do know. I'm so lucky. So to be honest, I was expecting a lot more passages like that one. But the book does seem to truly be about her and her relationship with her mother. So now she's 18, and when she was 18, she had a small stint of doing country music. This was news to me. I actually didn't know that she did that for a little bit. Also around this time, we learned that her mom's cancer is back, and due to her having her cancer treatments, Jennette is without her for a little bit when she's doing some touring. During this time, she gets to shower herself for the first time, and now she's eating again, and she's putting on weight. Even though when she's eating, this riddles her with guilt because of, you know, all of these years of having such an unhealthy relationship with food. But then she goes back to LA, and as soon as she's back to being around her mom, she's put back on her diet. So we're back in LA, and she's still working on iCarly, and due to her mom's cancer diagnosis, her mom is wheelchair bound. So previously her mom would drive her to work, but she can't drive anymore. So Jennette decides to move closer to the studio so that she can just get to work very quickly. And her mom goes to move her there, and then she just never leaves. And instead of Jennette getting to live alone, like she was hoping, they become roomies. I figured we could watch it tonight after you unpack. Oh, okay, that'd be great. Yeah, Mom says, removing her hat to scratch her bald head. Then I was thinking I don't have chemo tomorrow, so I could spend the night, you know, if you want. She looks at me doe-eyed, wringing her hands nervously. I immediately know what this is. This is not Mom spending the night. This is Mom spending every night for the foreseeable future. This is Mom moving in, and I don't want her to spend the night. Sure, you can spend the night, I say. And I continue to say it every single night for the next 3 months until eventually she doesn't ask anymore. She just expects it. This is not my first ever solo apartment. This is our apartment. We're roommates. So with her mom roommate, Jennette is an adult, and she's trying to live a somewhat independent life. For a year when she's 18, she's dating a 30-year-old, and she's keeping this a secret from her mother. And then there's this whole thing where she gets a gift from the Nick studio for a vacation in Hawaii, and she invites him. She doesn't tell her mother this. But then they get photographed by paparazzi in Hawaii, and her mom sees it, and she sends her this batshit crazy email. I just have to read it because she's crazy. Dear Net, I am so disappointed in you. You used to be my perfect little angel, but now you are nothing more than a little slut, a floozy, all used up. And to think you wasted it on that hideous ogre of a man. I saw the pictures on a website called TMZ. I saw you in Hawaii with him. I saw you rubbing his disgusting hairy stomach. I knew you were lying about Colton. Add that to the list of things you are. Liar, conniving, evil. You look pudgier too. It's clear you're eating your guilt. Thinking of you with his ding-dong inside of you makes me sick. Sick. I raised you better than this. What happened to my good little girl? Where did she go? And who is this monster that has replaced her? You're an ugly monster now. I told your brothers about you and they all said they disown you just like I do. We want nothing to do with you. Love, Mom. Or should I say Deb, since I'm no longer your mother. P.S. Send money for a new fridge. Ours broke. So then she gets another email when she doesn't respond. And she says, you caused my cancer to come back. I hope you're happy knowing this. You have to live with this fact. You gave me cancer. It just pisses me off. So Jennette she wants to still please her mom. You can't just undo this many years of conditioning on her mom's part, and she's not just going to cut her mom out of her life. So she wants to meet up and she wants to work these things out. They do. They don't really ever discuss it. Her mom just basically talks about how she's sick and how she's dying and how she wants Jennette to sing this song at her funeral, and things just go back to normal. So they're back on track, and after that happened, her mom's health took like a really steep decline. And this is all when Jennette is 21. iCarly has ended. And we learned that her and Miranda Cosgrove from iCarly also legitimately were like close during the filming of iCarly, and I guess they got closer after the show had ended. So that made me happy that she had that they were like actually like genuinely friends. So anyway, so her mom is sick. So the book was split in between two sections. So the first section was called Before, as in like before her mom died. And then there was the second section, which was After, which is after her mom passed. So her mom passed away after being in home hospice for 3 weeks. And Jennette's grief was very interesting to read. She was mainly just straight up angry. She still wanted to do all of these things to please her mom, and she was obviously going through it. She was filming Sam and Cat at the time, and it was interesting to read that she definitely did not hold the same fondness for Ariana Grande as she did for Miranda Cosgrove. That probably had a lot to do with her being very bitter after her mom's death. Then this week happened. The week where I was told Ariana would not be here at all and that they would write around her absence this episode by having her character be locked in a box. Are you kidding me? So I have to turn down movies while Ariana's off whistle toning at the Billboard Music Awards? Fuck this. There was a time when I took the thanks for being such a good sport comment as a true compliment. I took pride in it. Mom always taught me to be the one growing up, always wanted me to be the one so I'd book more roles, build a good reputation to help my acting career grow. So when I was called one, I knew I was doing something right. Yep, I'm a good sport. I'm a good egg. I'm the good one. I'm the one who's not difficult, the teacher's pet. But now I'm over it. I've become a bitter person and I'm resigned to that fact. I can't change any circumstances, so why try to change who I've become as a result of them? I'm done being a good sport. I resent being a good sport. If I wasn't such a good sport to begin with, I wouldn't be in this predicament in the first place. I wouldn't be on this shitty show saying these shitty lines on this shitty set with this shitty hairstyle. Maybe my life would be entirely different right now. I fantasize about it being different. But it's not different, it's this. This is what it is. Ariana misses work in pursuit of her music career while I act with a box. I'm pissed about it, and I'm pissed at her, jealous of her for a few reasons. So she's very obviously bitter, and when Sam and Cat was canceled, she was relieved, very, very happy about it. And then she was offered $300,000 as hush money to not publicly speak out about her time on Nickelodeon, or very specifically her interactions with the creator of the shows. She tells her people that she will not take the money. But then in the book, she doesn't dive into her experience, like very specifically. So I'm unsure if she ended up changing her mind about the money or if she didn't accept the money and instead she made like the decision with this book that it should only focus on her mom. And then maybe down the road, she'll disclose more about her specific Nick experience. Only time will tell. But if she does release a book about her Nick experience, I will definitely be reading it. So at this point, I really feel for Jennette. She's started binge drinking, and now instead of calorie restriction, she's gone to binging and purging. She's still really struggling after her mom's death, and she's trying to figure out her sense of self now that she doesn't have her mom to live for anymore. And, previously her whole life had been revolving around her mom. I just felt like there were a lot of moments where she gave examples or where she wrote things I felt like were really impactful about how she was feeling and her emotions. And I just think it's really important that I read some of them. I'm starting to expect I'll have a bulimia-induced heart attack. It's hard to admit, but part of me actually wishes I would. Then I wouldn't have to be here anymore. My thoughts have gotten dark and dramatic like this in the recent weeks. And while at first I was aware of the shift and concerned, it no longer feels like a shift. It just feels like me. The disappointments in my life are piling up, and with each added disappointment, so grows my misery. Mom's death alone would have taken everything out of me, but since then the pile has gotten bigger and bigger. I can't get a hold of my bulimia. It's taking me over and I've stopped fighting. What's the point? It's stronger than I'll ever be. It's easier not to fight it. It's easier to accept it, embrace it even. I've come to terms with the fact that I don't like acting. While I was able to push through the season for the promise of directing, now that the opportunity has been taken from me, I feel like all I've ever been and all I will ever be is an actor. A has-been actor because who's going to want to hire me when I've spent almost 10 years on Nickelodeon? How will I ever get a real acting job, anything but this phony, bizarre sphere? I never went to college and I have no life skills. So even if I wanted to get a profession outside of the entertainment industry, it's years away from being a realistic option. I know I've grown bitter. I know I've grown resentful, but I don't fucking care. I feel like that show robbed me of my youth, of a normal adolescence where I could have experienced life without every little thing I did being critiqued, discussed, or ridiculed. I start to thoroughly dislike fame by the time I turned 16, but now at 21, I despise it. So here's another one. It's basically in almost every single chapter, her kind of spiraling and just having these realizations. My entire life's purpose keeping mom alive and happy was for nothing. All those years I spent focusing on her, all the time I spent orienting my every thought and action toward what I thought would please her were almost pointless, because now she's gone. I tried desperately to understand and know my mother, what made her sad, what made her happy, and on and on and on, at the expense of ever really knowing myself. Without mom around, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know who I am. And I certainly don't know what to wish for. I'm more convinced than ever that I need to quit acting, that it doesn't serve my mental health or emotional health, that it's been destructive to both. And I think about what else has been destructive to my mental and emotional health. The eating disorders, of course, and the alcohol issues. And then I realize as much as I'm convinced that I need to quit those things, acting, bulimia, alcohol, I don't think that I can. As much as I resent them, in a strange way, they define me. They are my identity. Maybe that's why I resent them. So obviously she's really struggling, and it was hard to read, especially the second half of the book. The first half was hard, and the second half was even harder. It was you could just tell that she was very emotional. And it also seems like the second half of this book, she was much more angry than she was in the first half of the book. She talked, a lot about her resentment and her bitterness at her current situation. And she also greatly detailed her struggles with bulimia. And this was my first time reading about someone specifically detailing their eating disorder, and definitely not holding back, detailing how often she did it and her thoughts when she was doing it, and just her internal struggle. And this was really eye-opening. It seems for a lot of people, food is just something you eat and you keep going on with your day. But with Jennette, with her having this eating disorder, food was an everyday struggle. It caused her panic attacks and this terrible anxiety, and it was just this terrible internal debate with herself. Although reading the details regarding her eating disorder was really hard, I am glad she detailed it so candidly, because now I do feel like I've gained this new somewhat understanding for these disorders and how real and impactful they are to the individuals who are struggling with them every day. And I really felt for her throughout the book. For a short time, she was starting to see a therapist for help, but this was only because her boyfriend at the time had found out about her bulimia and he wanted her to get help. And at the time of starting therapy, she indicated that she was binging and purging 5 times a day, and she was drinking up to 9 shots of hard liquor every night. And this bulimia and this behavior had been a constant in her life for the past 3 years. So after about a month of her therapy, she, for the first time, went 24 hours without throwing up. And then this is when the therapist started wanting to get into what caused the eating disorder in the first place. Tell me about your mom. Tell me about your relationship with her when you were a kid. Immediately, I'm defensive. Why does she want to talk to me about mom? What's wrong with mom? Nothing's wrong with mom. Mom was perfect. I know in my gut that I don't believe this, but it's a lot more complicated than this. But why on earth would I tell Laura the specifics? I've never told anyone the specifics, and I never will. I don't even fully understand them, and I don't want to. I don't need to. My mom was wonderful. She was honestly like the perfect mom. Oh yeah? What was so perfect? I throw on my best fake smile. Laura's sharp. I'm sure she can see right through most of her clients, but not me. I didn't star on a shitty sitcom for decades and not learn how to sell a line I don't believe in. Just everything, to be honest. She took care of me and my brothers. I'm sure that was really hard for her. That was her job. I feel interrogated, but I can't say the right thing. I speed up, trying to explain myself. Well, I mean, this was different for most parents. Shit, I hate how that came out. How so? I pause to compose myself. Laura won't rattle me. I speak in an even, measured tone. She sacrificed everything for me. She constantly went without so she could take care of me, put me first ahead of herself. And you think that's healthy? What kind of fresh hell is this? What is this impossible to ace quiz? I have no idea how I'm supposed to be answering to make mom look good. Well, I mean, I put her first too, so that kind of balanced it out. We balanced each other out, putting each other first out. Laura looks at me, an unreadable look. She says nothing. The silence is deafening. We were best friends, I clarify. Oh? Did your mom have any friends her own age as well, or was her main friendship the one she had with you? What do you want from me, Laura? I squirm in my seat. Are you comfortable? I'm extremely comfortable. Did your mom have any friends of her own? Yeah, no, I heard the question, I say in a bitch voice. Laura looks slightly startled. I feel sorry. So when did you want to first start acting? I know a trick question when I hear one. Actually, mom wanted me to start acting because she wanted me to have a better life than she had. Oh, so you didn't want to start acting? Your mom wanted you to start? Yes, I say with a little more heat than I would have liked, because she wanted me to have a better life than she had. It was very kind and generous of her. Okay, it was. I understand. Can you tell me the first time you were aware of your body in a significant way? When I was 11, I was concerned about getting boobs, so mom taught me about calorie restriction to help me out. Jennette, what you're describing is really unhealthy. Your mother essentially condoned your anorexia, encouraged it. She taught it to you. That's abuse. Laura suggested that mom was abusive. My whole life, my entire existence has oriented to the narrative that mom wants what's best for me. Mom does want what's best for me. Mom knows what's best for me. Even in the past, when resentments start to creep in or wedges started to come between us, I have checked those resentments and wedges. I have curbed them so that I can move forward with this narrative intact, this narrative that feels essential to my survival. If mom really didn't want what's best for me or do what was best for me or know what was best for me, that means my entire life, my entire point of view, my entire identity have been built on a false foundation. And if my entire life and point of view and identity have been built on a false foundation, confronting that false foundation would mean destroying it and rebuilding a new foundation from the ground up. I have no idea how to go about doing this. I have no idea how to go about life without doing it in the shadow of my mother, without my every move being dictated by her wants, her needs, her approval. Up until this point, we have read this whole book where she's written, showcasing her mother's abuse. And it was easy to forget that while she was actually living this, that she didn't realize what was happening to her. It was hard to read how uncomfortable she was, like when she was confronted about her mom, because even at that time, she still hadn't realized what had happened to her. She didn't realize how controlling her mom was, etc. So she became so overwhelmed with this realization that she quit therapy immediately, and then she went back to her normal binging and purging. So at this point in the book, we're actually really close to the end. When she calls quits on therapy, there's only like 50 pages left in the book. So I was really unsure on how this was going to wrap up or end. Like it felt like it was just all of a sudden moving very quickly. But the next few chapters, like, they just kind of like move right along. There's a couple significant things that happened. She finds out that her dad isn't her biological dad. Her and two of her brothers, I guess, share a different same biological father. This guy that her mom had a long-term affair with. And then she also finds out that her boyfriend has been newly diagnosed as schizophrenic, and they develop this like codependent relationship where she's constantly trying to help him instead of kind of like working on herself. And then, but she does finally start to work on herself. She does go to a specific eating disorder specialist. When she loses one of her teeth when she's throwing up, she kind of like realizes like, it's time. And this new eating disorder specialist did seem to really help her. She was like tracking her feelings of food. And this is again, like when we start to like really see like inside of her mind when it comes to food, and her thoughts and her fears and just like how difficult something like eating is for her. So her recovery is very long and very difficult. She has a lot of slips, but then she really does want to like take charge of her life and move on. And near the end of the book, she does really make a lot of changes. So she sells her house that she lives in that she's never liked. Her and her boyfriend break up, and then she decides to retire from acting. I feel at peace with the decision. Finally, I didn't at first. It's taken me over a year of mulling and back and forth with Jeff in order to get here. I've known for so long that my relationship with acting is a complicated one, not dissimilar to my relationship with food and my body. Both of them feel like a constant pulling, yearning, begging, fighting. I'm trying desperately to get their approval, their affection, and I never quite seem to. I'm never quite good enough. I'm resentful of the fight and exhausted with it. I finally started to take control of my relationship with food, and the healthier that relationship becomes, the more unhealthy a career in acting seems for me. I understand that many aspects of any job are out of the control of the person doing it, but in acting that's especially the case. So much of my life has felt out of control for so long, and I'm done with it being my reality. I want my life to be in my hands, not the eating disorders or casting directors or an agent's or my mom's, mine. So I love that for her, I love how she phrases that, how she's ready to have life just be her own, and that makes me really happy for her. The last chapter of this book was fantastic. It ended so strongly. She visits her mother's grave and she wraps up about her feelings about her mom and her life all within 3 pages. Like I said, she really does have a gift with writing and being able to very clearly say what she is intending to say without dragging it out. And that is so impactful. And the last line of the book is so good. So the last chapter takes place when she's at her mom's gravesite. And she talks about how her mom made her promise that she would visit her grave every single day. And she hasn't done that and she feels guilty about it. But the very last line, she says, "I stand up, wipe the dirt off my jeans and walk away. I know I'm not coming back." I just feel like that's such a strong way to end a book. I imagine this book must have been very painful, but at the same time cathartic for Jennette to write. I think it takes a very strong person to relive their painful past and to put it on the page for others to read and to learn from. If you haven't read this, even though I went through a lot of the details, I would still highly encourage anyone to read it. It's definitely one of my favorite things that I've read this year. So that's it for me today, guys. I know this was a long one. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!